So you said that there's no starvation in Gaza.
Okay.
There's no genocide in Gaza, right? Which, by the way, goes against consensus. Goes against all of the news that we got from the UN, from all the humanitarian. Hold on, let me finish. Let me just make my points, and then I'll let you go. Right? It goes against what the UN has said. It goes against consensus. It goes against all human rights watch groups. That what's going on currently in Gaza is the biggest man-made starvation of all time, and that's being perpetuated by the IDF because you're not allowing humanitarian aid into Gaza. Tell me why they're all wrong and the IDF and yourself are correct.
Okay, very simple. So first and foremost, I'm speaking from experience. So just for stream, this is me in Gaza a few days ago. So I'm a journalist, it's not as part of the IDF, but it was via the IDF that I had access. So tragically, there is real hunger in pockets of Gaza. So to understand how Gaza is structured, what's going on there, we need to step back and look at the big picture. So Israel has facilitated the movement of over 1.8 million tons of aid into Gaza since the start of the war. 1.4 million tons of that is aid. I've been there, I've seen it with my own eyes, rotting in the sun. And we're going to get to why it's rotting in the sun in a minute. Now, Israel is very aware of how much aid goes into Gaza. And because of the campaign that Hamas have been fighting, there is restrictions on products that get in there, and that has created a genuine demand for food, which has pushed prices up. And so since the beginning of the war, we've taken out a huge percentage of Hamas fighters, including most of their Nukba forces, their better fighters, which has left them in a desperate situation where they need to recruit. So what they started doing was hijacking the aid. 85% of the aid coming into Gaza, according to the United Nations, their aid that they moved, was
Feel free to cite sources, by the way.
This is the United Nations. If you go to their own, this is United Nations saying 85% of our aid has been intercepted. So there's your source, the United Nations talking about their own aid.
Intercepted by who? Intercepted by who?
So the assumption is Hamas, but they don't say who. So
the assumption is Hamas. I'm not going to go off of assumption.
So
they either give me a specific source.
Okay, bro.
You don't
Unfortunately, when Hamas take the lorries, the wagons, with their gunmen, they're not wearing uniforms. When they crossed into Israel on October the 7th, they're wearing these. What we can say is there are men with guns that are intercepting.
Okay, first of all,
I listened to you. You asked the question.
No, you listened to me for 30 seconds. At least do me a favor of wrapping it up. Wrap it up.
You're gonna allow me to speak, and then you can respond.
I'll allow you to speak.
I'm not going to get sidetracked. We're not going to get sidetracked. You asked for a source.
You won't get sidetracked, but you brought up Hamas when I asked you about the.
You asked who's intercepted. You asked who's intercepted. I gave you a fast answer and an accurate answer. The overwhelming majority of aid is assumed to be assumpted because we found huge amounts of aid in their warehouses, etc. But I can't account for every single aid, and the United Nations don't release that statistic as to who's intercepting because they don't know, because it's a war. But anyway, to get to the point. So what's happened was Hamas were intercepting it so that they could sell the aid and they've sold so far $500 million worth of aid in Gaza, and it's how they've been bankrolling.
Cite sources when you're making these points.
Okay, in a minute. What I will provide all sources. I'm going to post this video on YouTube. All the sources will go on my YouTube, and everyone can go and check them out.
Go ahead.
And so, just to get to there, so $500 million of aid has been intercepted and sold by Gaza, and this is how Hamas has been bankrolling its war. And now we're going to get to the important part. Unfortunately, Israel made a mistake. Israel saw that there was enough aid in Gaza for 6 months. And so they decided to prevent Hamas from being able to recruit more fighters. We're going to block any future aid going in. And they did this, and it was a mistake because what they didn't anticipate was when they did that, it set off an alarm bell amongst Gazan society, and people started hoarding aid. And people started buying aid. And while there's been accusations of famine, etc. for years. Habibi, slow down. We get. Let me land. Let me land.
Listen, you keep saying Habibis and mashallah. You've been landing this Boeing jet for the past hour. Wrap the point up so I can address your points.
Okay.
If you make 100 points, then we can't do this.
Bro, you're not.
It's a monologue.
This isn't a TikTok debate, bro. We're having a debate. You asked a real question.
Okay, we're having a debate. But I made a point for 30 seconds. You've been talking for.
You asked the question. What was you? You asked the question. You didn't make a point. You asked the question. You ask the question.
Okay, I asked the question,
and I'm giving you an answer. If you want a 5-second answer with an idiot, you can go debate someone else. If you debate me, we debate like adults.
But hilariously, you're not giving me any answer.
We debate like adults. I provide the answer, and then you respond to the.
Are you incapable of giving me a succinct point?
Yes, with this question, I am. There's not a succinct point to is there starvation in Gaza. It's a big question with a big answer.
Me sources for the points that you made?
I'm literally providing United Nations as a source. I'm providing multiple sources.
No, you didn't. You said that the United Nations said this. And then when I asked you who's intercepting the aid, you said that the assumption is Hamas. I said, how are you assuming this? You said it's a war. We can't get specific data, yet you're citing the UN. So I'm confused. You either give me full sources that back up your points, or you don't give me assumptions.
Okay, bro.
And you're telling me right now, correct me if I'm wrong.
Mate, I'm happy to have this debate. I'm happy to have this. I haven't landed my point. I haven't landed my point. If we debate, we debate on my terms. No, if we debate, we debate on my terms. And my terms are we allow each other to speak and answer
equal to each other.
Exactly. So I will listen to every point you make, and I'll let you take as much time as you want to land your plane, whether it's a jumbo jet or a biplane. You can land it however you want. If we debate, we allow each other to speak.
Let's institute 2 minutes for each other.
No, I'm not doing a 2 minute
because we can't just sit here all day. No, we can do 2 minutes.
So I'm not doing 2 minutes. I'm doing a proper debate, bro, or not at all.
So do you want to just yap for 10 minutes? Is that it?
Quite possibly, and then you can respond for 10 minutes.
Wrap up the point, brother, please, because you're not making any points anyways, regardless.
Okay, fine. So if I'm not making any points, then you can refute the points that I'm not making.
There's nothing wrong with you saying. Sure. Go ahead.
Thank you. So hopefully no more sideshows.
Ironic coming from you. Go ahead.
So Hamas were hijacking the aid to pay for their fighters. Israel miscalculated, just to get back to where we were, because you kind of derailed my thought process. And Israel then implemented a blockade, and that triggered in Gazan society a large number of people to hoard food because they presumed correctly that there could be scarcity. And for the first time in months, we saw prices actually skyrocket. And price of flour went from, I can't remember what it was, but it shot up to $50 for 1 kilogram of flour. And so we now know that in areas of Gaza, there is genuine issues getting hold of food, which is why the aid went crazy. Now, Israel...
Wait, before you move on, real quick question.
New York Times.
Question. Can I not ask questions to understand your points?
Yeah,
Can I ask questions?
Yeah, no, you can ask clarifying questions. That's
okay, thank you. There we go. Okay, so what you're claiming right now is that the issue isn't that there is starvation, man-made starvation by the IDF, is the complete opposite, and that there's an abundance of aid that is being hoarded by the Gazans that Israel has noticed. Yeah. Therefore, they have stopped allowing aid trucks into Gaza.
That's not my point.
Again, I'm going off of what you said.
So I'll try and be clear. That's not my point. So
please try to be clear. Go ahead.
So what I'm saying is, Israel tried to prevent Hamas from recruiting by blocking the aid because that's how they were recruiting. It backfired on them because when they instituted the blockade,
I thought that they were selling it for a high price. Didn't you just say that?
That's literally what I'm saying now.
You said that they were selling the aid.
So Hamas
for a huge markup. But now you're claiming that they used it to recruit fighters.
Yes. So again, listen to what I'm saying. It makes perfect sense. So apologies if I'm not making this clear enough for you to understand. I will try harder. So in Gaza, food is a scarcity. It's an expensive commodity. It's a necessity. It's an essential that people need. And so Hamas recognize that food is control, and they do one of two things. They use it to feed their own people, obviously, but they also use it to resell and to fund and bankroll their enterprise because they don't have any money coming in at the moment. Gone are the days where Qatar can wander over the Erez crossing and hand over briefcases filled with dollars. Those days are long gone. So to recruit fighters, they need to pay fighters.
Can you clarify that this is speculation, by the way, on your end, about the Hamas part?
No, this isn't speculation. This is $500 million has been taken by Hamas and used to. This is literally how they recruit.
According to who?
Israeli intelligence. Israeli intelligence.
So am I to take that if I were to give you sources, Hamas sources, as you'd call them?
I mean, you have to give Hamas sources. Whenever you're giving death tolls, you have to give Hamas sources.
But am I to assume that you will disagree with those sources because they come from Hamas.
That's fine. You can disagree. You can disagree with what I'm saying.
No, I'm asking you, not me.
So
no,
I'm about to. I will.
Would you disagree with those numbers?
In this debate, I will use Hamas sources.
No, currently you're using IDF sources as well.
So because the two parties that are at war here, and the only people who have access to what's going on are Gazans and Israelis. The government of Gaza is.
Why aren't okay? Hold on, great.
Bro,
okay,
before we get to journalists and censorship,
wait, hold on, let's get into it. Let's get into it.
Bro, you're running away from the starvation.
Let's get into it.
You're running away from starvation.
No, I'm not running away from nothing. No, I'm not.
Okay,
because your points are there's a warehouse that had $500 million worth of aid.
That's not my point at all.
That belonged to Hamas.
That's not my point.
No. Wait, correct me if I'm wrong, but you said the IDF seized the warehouse that has $500 million. I'm
not saying there's no. That's not what. Sorry.
Therefore, you assume that Hamas took the aid.
That's not what I said. That's not what I said. I said we found warehouses filled with aid. I haven't said there's a warehouse with $500 million worth of aid. That has never left my lips. Oh, we've lost them.
Right, continue.
All right, thank you. I want to address the point that you've made. When you said that the only two groups that have access to intel on the ground is Hamas and the IDF.
No, I said Israelis and Gazans. I said Israelis and Gazans, and I said Hamas are the government, and Israel is obviously the government of Israel. So it's literally all recorded, bro. Pay attention. Listen to what I say.
Israelis,
listen
to what I say. Because you're using IDF data and you're using Hamas data, right, to make your points. So me saying Hamas or IDF or Israelis or Palestinians does not make any difference. You're making.
It makes a big difference because there are independents. There are people. There are people in Gaza.
That you use, is it Hamas? Is it Hamas or is it
which data?
Palestinian
which data? Which data point we're talking?
You said right now, 2 minutes ago, you said I will use Hamas numbers.
I said so. For instance, if we're talking deaths, I will talk about the verified list of 60,000, around 60,000 dead from the Hamas Ministry of Health. That will be the number that we will cite when discussing deaths.
Sure. So again, thank you for clarifying the point that you said. You'll use Hamas numbers and you'll use IDF numbers. But the question is, why aren't independent journalists allowed into Gaza? Why are journalists being blocked from entering Gaza?
For the same reason that they're not allowed to the front line of the Ukrainian conflict. It's very rare that governments are allowed to the front line.
You're telling me that... Hold on one second. You're telling me that journalists are denied access to what's going on in the Ukraine
the front
to
line,
the same degree or manner that's what's going on.
Yes.
Well, I didn't say front line though. I didn't make that distinction.
Because
I said
how big is
journalists allowed to speak on what's going on?
It's just because you don't understand the difference between the territorial size
but then you
of
can't use the argument, can't you, though? You can't
all
use
of
the
Gaza.
Have
you seen Gaza? It's all the front line. All of Gaza is a front line.
I've seen Gaza, and I've seen how the IDF. I've seen how.
How big is Gaza, bro? How big is Gaza?
Well, you guys could care less.
How big is Gaza?
You guys could care less about the size of Gaza.
How big is Gaza? How big is Gaza? How big is the Ukraine? So journalists can enter Kiev and they're fine.
Obviously, the Ukraine is much larger.
Exactly, precisely.
So are you telling me right? Okay, hold on. So is the argument that you're trying to make right now is that Israel is trying to look out for the safety of journalists in Gaza?
No, journalists.
You just said safety.
No, I didn't. I said journalists are not allowed to the front line of the Ukraine. The Ukrainian-Russian conflict from either parties.
I didn't bring up the Ukraine.
Kiev doesn't allow them in.
And journalists are allowed. Okay, so what you're trying to make, the argument that you're trying to make right now is everywhere in Gaza is the front lines.
Yes.
Right?
Everywhere in Gaza is a front line, yes.
So how could you distinguish a safe zone from an unsafe zone if everywhere is the
Al-Mawasi is a safe zone. I don't like the term safe. I would say safer zone. I don't like the term safe because the safer zones are fired upon when Hamas fires from them.
Are there so when Israel fires upon aid trucks that are swarmed by civilians trying to get aid, is Hamas involved? Because we've seen multiple cases of that happening.
So again,
we've seen multiple cases of excuse me, let me finish. We've seen multiple cases of the IDF firing upon children and hitting them in the chest and in the head. Is that cases of Hamas being involved? And if so, please, again.
So every case we'd have to do case by case detail. What I would say, and I'll say this every single time when I'm debating someone, a Palestinian child, their life is worth the same as I have Israeli children. Their lives are worth the same as my children.
Brave take.
Pardon?
It's a brave take. Thank you for making that take.
No,
I'm sure it's not common coming from a Zionist. But go ahead.
Why are we doing this? Like, we either debate.
You don't have to act indignant every time I make a point. By the way, it doesn't have to hurt you or like touch your pride.
Snarky comments.
Because you're the same guy who is snarky when you're the same guy who's saying Alhamdulillah, Allahu Akbar, MashaAllah.
What's wrong with saying Alhamdulillah?
Do you say that? Do you say that on a common basis when you're talking to your fellow Zionists?
Yes, I do.
Or when you're talking to non-Muslims, you say Alhamdulillah, Allahu Akbar, MashaAllah. How old was Aisha? You say that when you're talking to them.
Well, I don't talk about the age of Aisha. Because you just
asked my friend over here about. Yeah, sure. So let's not act like you haven't been a dick for the past hour.
Well, what preceded the Aisha comment?
You tell me.
So let's bring it back to the starvation. Let's bring it back to
Israeli children being equal. Yeah.
What I'm not going to do is sit and defend every single Israeli's actions. I'll defend the state. I'll defend the military in general terms. But this is a war, and there were
So you condemn Israel. You condemn Israel. You condemn Israel for killing children.
Listen to what I'm saying. Listen to what I'm
saying. Do you? It's a simple question.
So Israel is not killing children. Israel as a military.
You just said I condemn any deaths of children.
I didn't. I didn't say that. Again, listen to what. This is the real frustrating thing. Listen to what I'm saying.
Okay, I'm not listening. Let me ask you again.
Let me answer, and then we can move on. So I will.
Is it that hard to condemn the death of children?
Bro, this is only going to work if we go backwards and forwards. I'm just going to quit because it's doing my head.
We are going back and forth. I mean, you could go back. You could go back to your point.
You ask me a question every time I try and answer a question. You interject every single time. It's quite frustrating.
So you're about to answer my question. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So
go ahead.
The Israeli army, the military, has a very strict rules of engagement. It goes to incredible measures to minimize civilian casualties, and I'll prove that in a minute. And you can laugh, and you can do all for your audience. That's fine. We'll get there. However, there will be individuals, because this is war, because it's an incredibly traumatic war for both sides.
Say that with a straight face.
Because it's an incredibly traumatic war. Because, bro, unlike you, I'm not being propagandized by Al Jazeera. I go there with my own eyes.
Propagandized when you said that there's no man-made starvation in Gaza.
You're not here. You said that you're not here. Everything that you're seeing,
90% of the Gazan population has been displaced, Yusuf.
Exactly, and how many has died? Exactly, and how many has died?
50,000 plus have died.
Thank you. How many died in 1 year in 2014 in Syria? How many died in 1 year in Syria?
Injured. More journalists have been killed by the IDF than in World War I, World War II,
You're an idiot. You're an idiot. Then World War II. Really? 6 million Jews dead. Tens of thousands of journalists.
Aid trucks are used. I cannot believe
Did I just hear you correctly? Did you just say more journalists died in World War II? Did you just say?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
How many Jews died? How many Jewish journalists died? How many Jewish journalists died? How many Jewish journalists
died? Yusuf, more journalists died in Gaza than have died in World War I and World War II combined.
Okay, so how many journalists died in World War I and World War II? How many journalists died in World War I and World War II?
Brother, it's kind of ironic.
How many journalists died? And you keep on asking me for sources. I'm pushing back on you now.
It's kind of ironic. Where are your sources? Show me one source that you have put down. Show me one sources that you have put down.
So answer the question.
Go ahead.
How many journalists died? How many journalists died in World War I and World War II?
A lot less than the journalists that you have killed in Palestine.
Okay, so I'm going to have to, unfortunately, I made a video. It's not in my head, but I'm going to now show you how many Jewish journalists died in World War II.
No problem.
With me. France University.
While you're looking it up, I have a question, and feel free to take your time. I'm not even gonna rush you. But what do you feel? What do you feel should happen to Gaza after you guys eliminate Hamas?
So bear with me. I'll come to the question in a second. So here we go. This is it's going to take me a while to get the actual sources. But in pre-war Europe, there were tens of thousands of Jews working in the media. Poland alone had over 130 Jewish newspapers and journals. But our report only records the death of 2 Jewish journalists in World War II. So this is coming from the Brown Report. They recorded 2 Jewish journalists dying in World War II. Now, do you seriously, it's a straight question to you, do you really think that only 2 Jewish journalists died in World War II?
So sources are fake. Sources are fake. Is that the point you're trying to claim?
No. So do you know where the data comes from that you're talking about?
Where does the data come from?
Let me
educate me right now.
So
go ahead and educate me.
Bear with me.
It's the World War II sources. Wait, are you trying to say right now that World War II sources are inaccurate? That's a slippery slope that you're going down. I'm warning you.
What?
I'm just saying.
Okay.
If World War II numbers are inaccurate, you don't want to make those arguments, Yusuf.
So what argument am I about to make? What argument am I about to make?
No,
where does the number come from?
What is it about where you're trying to go? I believe all the numbers out of World War II, all of them.
So the freedom forums. Listen, it's not a World War II data. That's the issue. It's the Freedom Forum's Journalist Memorial. And in it, they record 2 Jewish journalists dying in World War II. They don't mention any of the newspapers. They don't mention any of the journals. They don't mention any of the Jewish journalists that were working in the media in Germany, in Poland, in all of these places.
Sure. So I understand what you're saying.
So I'm asking you a question. I'm asking you a question. Do you still believe that only 2 Jewish journalists died in World War II?
Is that what the numbers say?
Yeah, that's what they say. The argument that you're making.
Who's they? Who's they?
So it was a paper that was issued by a research, I've forgotten the professor, from Brown University in America that came out with the claim that more journalists have died in all of the wars since World War II, in Gaza, than all of the wars since World War II. And it calls out the Vietnam War, World War I, World War II, etc. So I'm responding directly to that. So
is that the same source that said, wait, hold on. Is that the same source that said in World War II only 2 Jewish journalists died?
So that's the same source. Yeah, that's the source they use for their data.
So you're saying that the source is inaccurate
Brown University used the Freedom Forum Memorial, Journalist Memorial, as the source for how many journalists died where. And it only lists 2 Jewish journalists dying in World War II.
So because you do not buy the fact that they only believe 2 Jewish journalists died in World War II,
I'm asking you, forget that I'm asking you, nothing to do. You said
I'm just trying to understand your line of logic.
So the point of logic, the point of logic.
Clarifying questions?
The point of logic is very simple, and this is quite frustrating. You claim that more journalists have died in all of the world wars since World War I than Gaza today. And we'll get onto some of those journalists in a minute. Journalists like Abdullah al-Jamal.
From a reputable source that you only have a problem with, by the way.
No, lots of people have a problem with it. It's been massively refuted.
Lots of Zionists have a problem with it. Sure, lots of Zionists have a problem.
So my question to you is very simple. You can go to the data.
I believe the source. Yes, I do. Yes,
so you think only 2 journalists died in World War II?
The answer to your question is yes.
Only 2 Jewish journalists died in World War II.
Okay, how many journalists do you believe died in Gaza? How many journalists do you believe died in Gaza?
So it's very hard to determine who is and who isn't a journalist. So it's a question.
It's very hard because
clarifying question. Is Abdullah al-Jamal a journalist? He's on the list. Is Abdullah al-Jamal a journalist?
You'll have to tell me who he is.
He's an Al Jazeera journalist.
Is he one of the journalists that got wiped out?
Yes, he's listed as one of the ones who's killed.
And is he also the one? Is he also the one that has a picture with the Hamas fighters?
No, it's a lot more than a picture with the Hamas fighters. That's Anas al-Sharif. Bro, you don't.
Was he?
Okay, in what capacity? The one you're talking about with the pictures.
I'm confused. No, hold on, Yusuf. Why does it hurt you that I'm trying to?
Okay, sorry. I'll come.
If your logic is gonna hold up, it's gonna hold up regardless of what I try to do to it.
Fine. Okay.
Have some more confidence in your points. Thank you. Okay. So, in what capacity was he killed him when he was in Gaza? What was he doing? What was he doing in Gaza when he was killed?
Abdullah al-Jamal.
Did he hold up a gun? Was he shooting IDF soldiers?
It was a little bit more than that, bro. Ask your audience to Google Abdullah al-Jamal.
No, don't worry about the audience. I want to know, when he was killed, what was he doing in Gaza? Why can't you answer that simple question?
Because he had hostages in his house. He was a member of Hamas that was part of kidnapping hostages.
Who told you this?
Look at it's video, bro. It's video.
If you take pictures with Hamas, it doesn't mean you're with Hamas.
No. The raid was filmed.
Wait, let me ask you, how many reservists were there on October 7th?
What do you mean reservists?
During the raid, when October 7th happened, how many IDF reservists were there? Or how many people that served in the IDF previously were there that day when October 7th went down?
Got no idea.
You got no idea.
Yeah.
How many of those people that were killed by Hamas, and how many of them were killed by Israel?
So the overwhelming majority were killed by Hamas. I've seen the videos. I've seen the press screening. We can't give an exact number, obviously, because it's a war.
I'm sure you're aware of the Hannibal Directive, right?
That Israel has never admitted to, and there is a measure that's there.
Hold on. Hold on. When you see the site of October 7th and all of those scorched cars, You're telling me Hamas with a few fighters were able. No, hold on.
I'm not going to debate you like this. No.
You're I'm making
around.
a point,
Start
and then
starvation.
Start
starvation. No. You start starvation. Jump on the journalists. Jump on the scorch cars. Jump on the Hannibal. Stay on the
now
topic.
You're accusing me of gish galloping. You're accusing me of gish galloping.
Well, I mean, you are. I keep on trying to land the point, and you run under the next one.
When I asked you about the starvation, you brought up Hamas and the IDF seizing a warehouse that has millions of dollars in aid,
which is directly related to what we're talking about. Which is directly related to why there's food scarcity.
It's speculation. You tried to cite the UN, but when I asked you, did the UN ever say that it was Hamas that did this? You said no. The assumption is that it's Hamas. I'm not here to argue your assumptions or your speculation. Therefore, I said we will not have common ground.
Everything that you've just said is speculation. Hannibal Directive, show me how that's not speculation.
No, it's not. I mean, if you give me some minutes, I'll send you multiple sources that you could go through on your.
Okay, so has the IDF stated we implemented the Hannibal Directive?
Would you deny that Egypt warned Israel that Hamas was planning something? Are you going to deny that Israel had forehand knowledge of what was going to go down?
What do you mean?
Because now there's no way you're okay. Hold on. Now the thing that confuses me is, you guys claim that Israel is the most moral army. You guys claim that they are precise. You guys claim that they value civilian life. You just said that all of Gaza is a front line. And you said there are no safe zones, only safer zones, pretty much admitting that there is no safe place for Palestinians. But you blame Hamas. You said that is because Hamas tries to embed themselves within civilian populations.
Bro, are you arguing with me? Are you arguing with someone else?
Wait, did you not say that there's no safe zone in Gaza and that it's all a front line? That's why journalists are not allowed in?
So let me explain what I said very clearly. I believe that Israel goes to incredible measures to minimize civilian casualties because all of Gaza is the front line. It is an active war in one of the most densely populated areas on the earth, where over half of the population, or around half the population, is under 18, and where the entity that we're engaged with uses civilians as human shields. So you've seen the images coming out of Gaza. You've seen places like Rawabi, which have been virtually razed to the huge swathes of it razed to the ground. The United Nations estimates that 70% of the buildings have been damaged or destroyed. 92% of the housing, they claim. This is the United Nations. I've got no way of verifying it, but I'm assuming it's from satellite imagery. 92% of the housing has been damaged or destroyed. Now, there's around 2 million people. You
claim precision, by the way.
Listen. You're gonna argue with my points once I've made them.
Please make the point. Go ahead.
Now, if 70% of the building has been damaged or destroyed and the population is 2 million and people exist in buildings, people exist in houses, we would expect the death toll to be at least 70%, because that's the buildings. 70% of 2 million is 1.4.
You're assuming that everybody would just be in the buildings when they're blown up?
You're getting there. You're making the point for me. No, you're making the point for me without realizing it. So let me land and then you can argue.
Go ahead.
If the people were in the building, 1.4 million people would die. Now, I live in a war zone. When Iran fires missiles, when the Houthis fire missiles, we have a minute and a half, and their weapons are a lot.
You live in Israel?
Listen, yes, I live in Israel.
Allahu Akbar.
Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar.
Wait, are you planning on moving to the West Bank anytime soon?
Just again, stay on topic, let me land, and then you can debate, and then we can talk about where I live,
Okay, please try to land so I can move on to my other topic points as well.
So,
thank you.
We have, where I am, we have a minute and a half to get to the bomb shelter. Yeah? So if a missile's coming and you don't get any warning, you're not surviving. If a bomb's being dropped, you're not surviving. So if you're not in the building, something's happened. Someone's warned you. So why aren't there 1.4 million dead Palestinians? Because Israel has made millions of phone calls warning people to leave buildings. You can go and watch them on the YouTube. Israel has dropped millions of flyers warning people to leave. You've seen the maps that Israel's created saying, if you're in this area, move to this area. If you're in this, move to
Al-Nawasi. Wait. Just remember when they said
land and then you debate.
Remember when Israel said move to the south and
let me land and then
people as they were trying to move
let me land and
then remember when that happened?
Let me land and then you can debate. If Israel were doing the things that you're saying, and if Israel were targeting it indiscriminately, there would be far more people dead than around 60,000. There would be hundreds of thousands.
So your argument,
and if it was 70%, it would be 1.4. My argument is very simple. Let me land, and then you can argue. My point is very simple. Israel has moved millions, and this is the argument. People continuously accuse Israel of displacing Palestinians, etc. They're doing that because they don't want them dead. Israel goes to incredible lengths to minimize civilian casualties. No other army in the history of warfare has gone to such lengths to minimize civilian casualties. The only reason there are dead Palestinians in Gaza today is because Sisi has locked the border. In Ukraine, there's 6 million refugees. In Afghanistan, 6 million refugees. In Yemen, millions of refugees. In Syria, 6 million refugees.
You're grandstanding and it's getting cringe.
All these
You're
debate terms?
You're grandstanding.
You
made your point. You made your point.
Oh,
question.
Just talk to me like a person.
You just said.
We're talking.
You just said. Yusuf. Then let's talk. Stop sounding like a Zionist bot, you NPC. Let's talk. Let's have a conversation. If you want me to talk to you normally, I can talk to you normally. Ironic coming from you, you muppet. You look like an idiot. Let me make my point. You just said the only reason that civilians are being killed is because they're not being pushed out of their homes into Egypt because Sisi has blocked off the border. Is that it?
Yes. In every
You're telling me
war.
the only okay, let me finish. I was asking you a question. I didn't ask you to yap. That's number one. Number two, you just said this is not a genocide because we haven't killed enough Palestinians. If Israel really wanted to, they could have destroyed the Palestinian population. Yet their numbers are still looking strong. That's what you're claiming. Because they haven't killed enough Palestinians, because it's not a great enough genocide, therefore it doesn't qualify as one.
We're the only genocide. We're the only genocide where we vaccinate a million Palestinians.
Wait, let me finish. You do know that people have made similar arguments for what Hitler was doing in Europe. You do know that Zionists today sound exactly like Nazis in the 1940s and late 1930s. This is the exact same arguments you made. If there was a real genocide, there wouldn't be enough Jews left. That is the exact argument that you're making. Also, you do know that it is a genocide if you're trying to push out a civilian population out of their homes.
That's ethnic cleansing. It's not genocide. Genocide is okay.
Yusuf, can I finish? Thank you very much. Thank you. Get back to your phone.
Clarifying question. Can you define genocide? Clarifying question. Define genocide. Clarifying question. Clarifying question. Use your debate.
Let me finish. Clarifying question. Feel free to Google it if you don't know what it means. I'm surprised you don't, since you've been debating Palestine for over the past 2 years plus.
I'm asking you for a definition, so we have a shared definition.
Let me ask you this. No.
Just tell me what a genocide is, bro.
Because you're trying to. It's a litmus test that's lame, and I thought you're above that because you said we're having a conversation. So
you're accusing Israel of genocide. I'm just trying to understand what you're accusing it of. What is a genocide?
If you don't know what a genocide is by now,
I have a definition. I'm going by the Genocide Convention of 1948 definition. The 1948 Genocide Convention Commission. That's what the 1948 Genocide Convention. That's what the definition I'm going by. What's your definition of a genocide? Just
Okay, and why? You know what? I'm not even going to fall for your trap. Could you please let me finish my point?
Okay, Israel's.
Let me finish my point. I'm not going to fall for it.
Can you tell me what you're accusing Israel of?
What genocide is.
What are genocide is? Wait, hold on. So what is it? I'm just trying to understand. It's not a trick.
Hold on. Let me ask you a question. Wait, hold on. Let me finish making my point, Yusuf. Thank you. You just said the only reason why Palestinian civilians are being killed is because Egypt is not allowing them through their border, right?
Yes.
Thank you. Yes or no? Because I don't want you to say I'll put words in your mouth. Could you give me a yes or no?
Yes, that is what I said. Yes.
Thank you. Okay. And you do know that qualifies as genocide if you are trying to displace a population out of their homeland.
That's ethnic cleansing.
Without them wanting to do so.
Population transfer is not. Population transfer.
Okay, hold on. If that's ethnic cleansing, did you just admit that Israel is committing ethnic cleansing?
Again, ethnic cleansing is the.
Did you just do that?
I'm just going to explain. I'm trying to explain the terms you're using. So what you're trying to infer.
You just said ethnic cleansing.
Allow me to finish, bro. Please. And then I'll give you the definition of a genocide. So people will say if you forcefully transfer a population based on their ethnicity or their religion, that's ethnic cleansing. If someone voluntarily leaves a war zone, that isn't ethnic cleansing. If you force them to leave, it is. So an ethnic cleansing is not a legal term. It's a term that was coined during the Yugoslavian wars to describe what was happening. It's not got a legal... Genocide has a legal definition, which was ratified in the 1948 Genocide Convention. And what a genocide is, the willful intent of the destruction of a people in part or whole. It was coined by Raphael.
Which has been demonstrated, by the way, by Israeli politicians in your own government that have said on numerous occasions that they want to clear out Palestinians from Gaza and move in Jews. moving Israelis. They've said that. They've said that clearly.
That's not genocide.
Yes or no?
That's not the
yes
destruction.
Or no?
That's not the
you
destruction of a
people. You just
people.
said with the intent of killing or displacing.
Not displacing. Those words never left my mouth. Displacement is not part. No, it's not part of the. It's not part of the definition. You don't know the terms you're using.
Okay. Hold on. I'm confused, Yusuf.
That's fine. I know you're confused.
No. I'm confused because you are a confusing person. You said that Israel is ethnically cleansing Palestine.
No, I didn't say it. I said that's what you're trying to infer.
Or they're attempting to. No, I wasn't trying to infer that.
Literally, the border is sealed, so no one's left. No one has left because the border is sealed.
But what you're trying to say is the reason why these civilians are being killed is because they're not being allowed into Egypt.
So again, let me just be really clear so there's no confusion. In every single war, women, children, civilians flee to safer places if they can. That's usually what happens. That's not ethnic cleansing. That's a refugee. There are refugees from almost... Bro, let me land a point.
Why are you trying to speak for the Palestinian population?
Let me land a point. Bro, we're debating
if
Israel and Palestine.
If the Palestinian population could choose between you guys
over
as
50%
moving out of their land,
you want sources? You want sources, bro?
Out into Egypt,
listen,
they would rather stay in Gaza.
50% of Palestinians.
What kind of demented argument is this?
It's one based on facts. 50% of Palestinians living in Gaza, based on the Palestinian Center for Survey and Policy Research, have stated in their surveys, that around 50% of Gazans, I think it's 48%, said if Israel would help them, they would want to leave. And I get that. I'm not saying they don't want to come back. It's a war zone. They have difficulty accessing the most basic things: water, electricity. It's hell on earth there. Of course they want to leave. It doesn't mean they want to leave permanently. And if they want to leave, they should be able to. And it's only monsters like you that use them as political pawns for your political...
Why isn't Israel allowing them into Israel? Hold on. Why isn't Israel allowing them into their own lands? Why are you trying to force the Palestinians into
because
Egypt?
Israel is at war with Gaza. Gaza is not at war with Egypt.
Wait, hold on. I thought Israel was at war with the Hamas, not
We're
with
at war with Gaza. Hamas is the elected government of Gaza. We're at war with Gaza.
I thought your entire point right now was that Israel goes above and beyond to protect innocent civilian populations.
Israel is at war with Gaza. England was at the United Great Britain was at war with Germany. Great Britain was at war with Germany. America was at war with Germany.
Yusuf,
Hamas is the government of God.
You're speaking out of both sides of your mouth. At one point, you said we go above and beyond to protect civilian populations.
You can still protect civilian population.
Israel allowing Palestinians into Israel if you're so worried about the Palestinian population?
Do you know how many civilians? Do you know how many civilians crossed over into Gaza on October the 7th and massacred Jews? Allahu Akbar. Really?
So I'm talking about civilians, and you bring up Hamas.
I'm saying
you see why people think you Zionists are demented creatures.
I'm saying Israel
you see
and
why
Gaza,
people think that because
Israel
I'm talking about innocent
Gaza,
civilians. Yet you bring up October 7th and Hamas.
Israel
you see why people do not trust
Israel and Gaza are at war with each other. Israel and Gaza are at war with each other. We have been for decades. Our people do not get along.
At war with Hamas.
The IDF, Israel is
civilians are innocents. I thought you said these people are innocents. Why are you telling me that now they're comparable to October 7th militants that broke through the fence and killed a bunch of Israelis? Why are you trying to make a one-to-one comparison between the innocent Palestinians and the Hamas militants?
So there's more civilians broke into Israel and murdered Jews than Hamas fighters on October the 7th. When they took the bodies of people like Shadi... Listen, no.
What source is that? You absolute dimwit. So you're telling me more civilians, more Gazans killed Israelis than Hamas on October 7th?
More crossed over and killed Jews is what I said. Not more killed Jews, because Hamas have greater fighting power than civilians. But more civilians than Hamas fighters terrorists crossed into Israel and started killing Jews. There's videos of Palestinians, civilians, trying to behead Thai workers.
Okay. Sure.
Okay, you can go. You can see. Literally, just go on any Telegram group. Go on any Palestinian Telegram group and scroll back to October the 7th.
Do you know how many extremist Israeli Telegram groups there are? God knows you're probably a part of a few of them. But let me make the point. Right now, the fact that I was speaking about civilians. Now that I was speaking about civilians. You said they should be allowed into Egypt, and Egypt and Sisi are monsters for not allowing them in. Even though 50% of them want to move, they want safety if Israel is going to help them do so. But when I asked you, why aren't you allowing those people into Israel? You brought up October 7th. And you brought up the fact that civilians,
what was my point?
Palestinian civilians,
good
came
faith.
through
What
the
was my
fence
point? Good
and
faith.
killed. No. I am making your point. Let me finish. Let me land.
Because I think you misunderstood.
Right? Thank you. No, let me land. No, I'm not. You said when I brought up the point of Palestinians being allowed, civilian Palestinians being allowed into Israel, you said more civilians than Hamas militants came through the fence and killed Israelis than Hamas militants themselves. What was the significance of you bringing that point up? What were you trying to say?
Okay, now allow me. Let's do this like grown-ups. Allow me to speak, don't interject.
Go ahead.
The point was, since Hamas took control of Gaza in 2007, and since UNRWA's been in charge of the curriculum basically since its inception, at least since Egypt left, Palestinian society has been radicalized against Israel. And let me respond. After October the 7th, Israeli society is radicalized against Gaza. You have two people who despise each other, and I get that. I get why these two people don't get along. Years of conflict, years of indoctrination. We've been at war basically for 100 years with each other. So I completely understand, and any rational person who's watching this that doesn't have a crazy bias understands why it wouldn't be sensible to house 2 million people who are at war with you in the territory. It would be the first expectation of any military to house the enemy population of the enemy that it's fighting. It's an insane proposal. However, and allow me to finish and then you respond. Egypt are the brothers of the Gazans. The most common surname amongst Gazans is Al-Masri. You're an Arabic speaker. I heard you saying Allahu Akbar. Al-Masri is the Egyptian.
No, I have to be Arabic to say that.
It's Allahu Akbar is Arabic, and Al-Masri is Arabic, the Egyptian. In Hebrew,
a lot of Indonesian Muslims, Bangladeshi Muslims, Pakistani Muslims say Allahu Akbar as well. They're not Arabs, but go ahead, finish your point.
Okay, I just assumed as you're a Muslim debate you spoke Arabic. I apologize.
Not an Arab. I speak Arabic, but I'm not an Arab.
So that's what I said. So why are you arguing? I said I assume you speak Arabic.
You said I'm an Arab.
No, I didn't say you. I said you spoke Arabic. I was speaking Arabic. I'm not an Arab.
Yusuf, we don't have to argue over every little point. You said Egyptians are brothers to
You're
the Palestinians.
You're the one that's arguing
with me.
I assume you speak Arabic, and you started arguing, and then you said I do speak Arabic.
Yusuf, I'm sure you're about to conclude your point, right? Go ahead. Go ahead, Yusuf.
Okay. Egypt is not at war with Gaza. It never has been. There's incredible love. They're the same ethnic group, overwhelmingly the same religion, like 99% the same religion. The Egyptians love, but more than almost any other people, the Egyptians love the Gazans. They love the Palestinians. I debate people from around the world. You will never meet as passionate a people for the cause of the Palestinians as the Egyptians. It makes perfect sense to open the border and allow them safe passage. Let me land my point. One thing I would concede, I think it should have been a priority for Israel at the beginning of the war and today to find a way to help the Gazans who are living there that want to leave to get safe passage. I think that's something my government should take upon itself at whatever cost. If it costs 20 billion, 40 billion, 50 billion, we should do that. And we should provide the context that once Gaza is rebuilt or before, they can come back whenever they want to. I don't want to permanently displace anyone from there. If they want to leave now, they should be able to leave a war zone. If they want to return tomorrow, they should be able to because it's their right. They were born there.
Yeah, because there's a precedent for them being pushed out of their lands and then being allowed to be brought back in.
Bro,
because
can
obviously
you just remind
after
me
the Nakba, they were all allowed to be brought back to Palestine.
To that point, there are 2 million. I'm just dealing with that. There are 2 million Arabs that live in Israel today. They have complete equality with Jews. Arabs are in government. Arabs have sent Jewish prime ministers and presidents to jail. Yes, there are Arab political parties. Even Ikhwan Muslimin was in government a couple of years ago, and then Naftali Bennett. They were in the actual government. Ikhwan Muslimin, and so we have that. There is how many? Can you remind me how many Jews are citizens of the Palestinian Authority, National Authority? How many Jews have a Palestinian National Authority?
I can remind you that prior to the existence of Israel, Jews, Muslims, and Christian, Palestinians, mind you, all lived together.
And we were persecuted. We were slaughtered. We were.
You were persecuted more in Europe. Yeah.
Yes, fine. I agree. We were persecuted more in Europe. It's fine.
The point that you guys were being persecuted isn't a strong point.
If a woman's husband beats her, it's not an argument to say her other husband beat her even more.
Okay, let me see if you're good faith. Would you say that your average Jew would say that they were persecuted more in Muslim lands than they were in Christian lands or in non-Arab lands.
The average Jew would say we were persecuted more by Christians, or the average educated Jew. I can't speak for every Jew, but anyone who's familiar with the literature.
Sure. Okay, and would you say that Jews are persecuted people, were an oppressed people that were persecuted all over the world, not only in Palestine, which you just said?
Yes, I would agree. I would agree with that.
So why would you make that point then? Why would you make that point? It's not really a great point if you guys were persecuted everywhere, least of which in Palestine and in Muslim countries for the most part.
So I wouldn't say least of which in Palestine. I'd say that's what you said. You asked me.
I mean, you in the beginning, in the early 20s, Jews were being brought to Palestine as refugees.
No,
in the 20s and 30s.
Bro, you don't know the history at all.
This is true.
No,
yes,
who was bringing Jews to that?
Wait, hold on, I'm confused. Were they not?
So let me explain what happened. Actually, this is genuine good faith.
No, please go ahead.
No, I actually want to know what you think. So tell me what you think happened in the 20s.
No. What I know. But you'd say that I'm gish galloping and I'm moving on to another topic and I don't know how to stay on topic. So I'm telling you right now, if they were no, I told you what I think. I think that they were brought in the 20s and 30s as refugees.
One clarifying question: by who?
By the British.
Okay, perfect. So you believe, just to understand your argument, that the British were paying and bringing Jews into?
I didn't say.
Well, that's what bringing means.
Sure. No. Okay, sure. Yeah. Okay, sure. Yeah, okay. Sure. Go ahead.
And just one more clarifying question: and the local Arabs welcomed them?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so good faith.
I mean, they did. Their population did increase.
Good faith. They
weren't welcoming out of their machine. Yes, sure it is. Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. So an honest answer would be a kind of partly right. The British weren't in the early 20s. The British weren't bringing Jews in. There was a split amongst the British at that point. There were those that were pro-Zionist and those were anti-Zionist. The military office, etc., tended to be in the colonial office tended to be pretty hostile to Zionism, whereas the government, Lord George, etc., they were quite pro-Zionism. So there was a schism. They weren't paying. Who was paying for Jewish refugees if they were entering the land? Were the Jews themselves. So it's kind of part true, part not true. But then when it comes to the Arabs who are in the land, that's where you kind of lose it a little bit. The Arabs, as soon as British were awarded the mandate, the Arabs started pushing back in a big way and putting major pressure on the British to limit Jewish immigration. And there were multiple massacres. There was the Nabi Musa massacre of 1920 in Jerusalem, Quds. That was
after they were given the land of Palestine to be turned into Israel.
No.
Is that what you said?
No, that's not what I said. Israel declared independence in 1948. I said after the British were awarded the mandate by the League of Nations, the first thing, as soon as they were awarded that mandate, the British, not the Zionists, not the Jews, the first thing the Arabs started doing was pushing back. And there was a push for Jewish nationalism and a push for nationalism.
Why would you think that? No, hold on. Why would you think that is? Why would they? Good faith.
Very simple.
Why would they push back against that?
Honest answer, they saw Jews who were living in the land and Jews who were entering the land talking about establishing the infrastructure for statehood, and they pushed back. So there was two main movements amongst the Arabs. So you're getting a good faith answer. Yeah, I'm not.
No, it is. It is sure.
There was two main movements. There were really the Pan-Arabists, and there was a much smaller faction of the nationalists. And the nationalists were under Hajimin al-Husseini. Hajimin al-Husseini was the one who basically orchestrated the 1920 Nabi Musa massacre in Jerusalem. The next year, there was the Jaffa massacres. In 1929, there was the Hebron massacre, the Jaffa massacre, many massacres of Jews. Coming from nationalists, coming from people like Izzeddin al-Khazama a few years later in the 30s, the back end of the 20s. So he set up something called Al-Kaf al-Aswad, the Black Hand, and they basically had like groups of 5 terror cells. They're like the proto-Daesh. They were this is a Syrian who came down, lived in Haifa, and set up these cells that went out and massacred Jews. At this point, the Jews were a small minority surrounded by millions of Arabs and Muslims, and it was not in their interest to be aggressive in any way because they would have been massacred. They were a tiny minority. But the Arabs not only put, not the Arabs, but people like Haji bin al-Hussein and Izzuddin al-Qassam not only put physical, violent attacks, but they also put major pressure on the British. And in the 1930s, during the Holocaust, the British implemented something called the White Paper, which limited Jewish immigration into the land and allowed Arabs to move en masse to the land. And so the Arabs saw one of the biggest population explosions in the Middle East of any country amongst Palestinian Arabs. Jews moved into the country in even greater numbers than the Arabs. So both people were moving to the territory during the mandate period. But to very briefly sum up, the British were hostile, very hostile from the 30s. The Jewish paramilitary militias, the forces, whatever you want to call it, Irgun, Haganah, the Lehi, many of them were literally at war. Well, the Irgun and the Lehi were literally at war with the British by the 1930s. They saw themselves as an anti-colonial force, and they saw the British as their colonial oppressors. In short, the Arabs of the land were very hostile to Jews. You could argue, for legitimate reasons. They predicted that the Jews were moving, or they saw that the Jews wanted to establish a state, and they wanted a state instead. So it was the conflict that we have today. It was a fight over land, but the Jews were definitely not welcomed in the land.
Let me ask you this. Inshallah. Let me ask you this. There you go. I'll listen to you. I didn't interrupt you. All right. Let me ask you this. Do you believe in a two-state solution?
Do you want me to answer?
Yeah, I want you to answer.
Before October the 7th, yes. Now, no. I believe in coexistence. I don't want to see any Arab displaced, and I don't want any Arab to have lesser rights than me.
Wait. Before October the 7th, you believe that there should be a two-state solution?
Yeah.
Let's include October 7th, right? Throughout the past 2, 3, 4, 5 decades, would you say that more Israelis were killed by Palestinians or the other way around?
The other way around.
Which is? I just want you to say it.
More Arabs have been killed than more Arabs have been killed by Israelis than Israelis have been killed by Arabs.
So why would you not want a two-state solution if a Palestinian were to come to you today and say, we want to coexist, but we want our own state?
Truthful answer, I think as long as Palestinian nationalism exists and Zionism exists, there's going to be perpetual conflict because of Quds, because of Masjid al-Aqsa and Har HaBayit, the Temple Mount, and basically Jewish, more than the religion. For us, I think for Muslims it's largely the religion. For Jews it's survival. So as long as Zionism exists alongside Palestinian nationalism, I think there's perpetual conflict. So we need to find a way of sidestepping that so that people here can live together, can have equality, but it's not based on two conflicting ideologies. Palestinian nationalism arose in reaction to Zionism, and I've never met a Palestinian nationalist. I've never seen any Palestinian organization that has ever represented Palestine as anything other than the British Western mandatory Palestine. So like the dagger-shaped triangular piece of land. That was created by the British. Those borders were drawn by the British, and every Palestinian organization.
Yeah, but the British were also the ones that awarded Israel to you guys.
No, they weren't.
So I'm confused about why that's why is that relevant?
The British.
Wait, so do you believe that Israel? Wait, hold on. So do you believe that Israel has always been a thing? Are you one? Wait, question. Are you one of those Are you one of those Zionists that believe that Palestine isn't a thing? There's no such thing as Palestine.
There's never been an Arab country called Palestine. There is people called the Palestinians.
Okay.
So do you believe there was an Arab country called Palestine?
There wasn't a country called Palestine. Okay, but so do you believe that people have the right to self-determination?
Yeah, that's
just as you guys had, as you guys had, right?
Not only that, I'd go even further. So I believe the Jews have a claim to this because this is where we had our ethnogenesis. And an ironic twist, Palestinians never existed as a geographical sovereign state under an Arab ruler. But they've had their ethnogenesis in this land, and if they persist as a people, they will also be an indigenous people to this land, because depending how that culture evolves.
Well, are they not currently indigenous to the land?
What does indigenous mean? And I'm not talking about plants. I'm talking about people.
No. Off the land, Palestinians, the Palestinians today that you find in Palestine, have been there for thousands of years.
But
Have they not?
Have it. No, some of them have, some of them haven't. It's a really ridiculous argument.
What about the Israelis?
What about
the vast majority of Israelis aren't of the land itself? Vast majority of Israelis are from Europe.
How do you get to that?
If we're talking about claim, wait, hold on. If we're talking about claim to the land based off of, who's been there longer,
so this is the irony of this. Here's the irony. I'm actually arguing for the if the Palestinian identity persists, it being indigenous. Mine's a good faith.
But it has already persisted for thousands of years.
You're not a real Jew. You're a European. You're a Khazar. You got European DNA. You're too white, boy. You're too white.
Yusuf, I didn't say any of that. But you're the one who claimed that they're not indigenous when you are from Europe.
No, I actually said the opposite.
You're whiter than this guy.
I said the opposite. I said if the Palestinian national
identity you said if they persist long enough, they will be indigenous.
Because that's what do you think? Indigenous doesn't just mean you live somewhere. If you're talking people, it means your people had their people. Yeah, so it means your people have an ethnogenesis there, and they have a culture that's tied and linked to that land. So, for instance, with the Jews, Hebrew is from here. Our entire religious worldview revolves around this land. The overwhelming majority of the laws. So no, at the moment that's not the case, but it probably will be the case. Okay, so what aspect of the Palestinian? The
Palestinians are Arabs.
Then that's Arab. Arabs. That's you can. Muslims are not indigenous to. It has to be distinct to that people. So with the Jews, the religion itself.
Are they not Semitic people? Are they not Semitic people?
What's that got to do with what Semitic people can be indigenous?
Well, I'm just confused. Places. I'm just confused because these people have been there for thousands of years.
We'll get there. No, they haven't.
No, I'm not. Again, my confusion. You always say that when I say I'm confused because you're like, I know I'm confused, as though my confusion doesn't stem from your lack of logic. You said that these people are not indigenous when the vast majority of Israelis have come from Europe. The vast majority of Israelis can't even draw their roots back to this land.
How'd you get to that? How do you get that the vast majority can't draw the roots back?
You cannot.
So take me. Look at pace.
Wouldn't DNA tests be allowed in Israel? Wouldn't DNA tests be allowed in Israel?
DNA tests. So, bro, this is one of the worst talking points.
Even if you do a 23andMe, even if you do a 23andMe, when you find Jewish, it always traces back to either somewhere in North Africa or Europe. It never traces back to Palestine. It doesn't. I'm just so confused. The argument that you're making.
Explain that to me. Explain that. What do you mean it traces back? No. Explain. What do you mean it traces back? No, you said something. What do you mean?
Okay, hold on 1 second. Hold on 1 second. Do you genuinely believe?
Can you tell me how genetics works? Tell me how DNA works.
Wait, hold on. Are you more Jewish than you are European?
Me personally, I'm mixed race. I'm personally mixed race. I'm part Jewish, part European, but most Jews aren't. Okay. Most Jews aren't. I'm an anomaly.
Most Jews
I have a
80% Jewish that could draw their most Jews are 80+% Jewish that could draw their roots.
Jews genetically. You're talking about genetically. Jews are one of the most genetically tight, distinct groups of people. They are homogenous because there's very little intermixing with other people. So other religions like Islam, they proselytize, they go out, they evangelize. Jews are only allowed to marry Jews, and we don't proselytize, which means we have a very restricted gene pool. And so most studies show that the overwhelming majority of Jews, Ashkenazi Jews, Sephardi Jews, whomever they are overwhelmingly genetically Jewish. I can't remember the exact percentage, but it's like high 80s, high 90s. And I'm an anomaly because without going into my families, because I'm on YouTube, but there's a convert in my family, and that means I've got I've got mixed DNA, mixed genetics. But even me, and even most Jews, that you'll say, their DNA, their haplotypes, it goes back to the Middle East. It goes back to the Levant. My haplotype is
where does the Palestinians want? Where does the
Palestinians are interesting. So the Palestinians have quite. So I'm going to get there, bro. I'm going to land there as well. So we're landing a lot of planes today, bro. I feel like
go land. I want to see.
So the Palestinians are a very diverse people because of the nature of the land. So if you look to their surnames often allude to where they're from. Al-Masri, Al-Maghrebi, Al-Kurd, Muhammad Al-Kurd. The major clans we have, like the Barghoutis, the Nashashibis, the Husseinis. We know where they all came over. We know where they came over with Umar ibn al-Khattab. We know whether they came over with other with Salahuddin.
These aren't the best arguments.
So I'm just going to get them. However, there are undoubtedly Arabs who've lived in the land for millennia, for centuries. And so when genetic studies are done on grave sites here, be they Canaanite, be they Jewish, be they other, often the communities that track the closest to them are Palestinians, Jews, Ashkenazi, etc. Not all of the Jewish communities track as closely. There tends to be a rank of those that are closer. So, for instance, Samaritans will rank pretty close to Jews and to Muslims, Palestinian Muslims in this area, whereas Christians as well. Obviously, the Christians are very diverse here. People think Palestinian, they think just Muslim, but there's Armenian Christians.
That's
there's
true, yeah, sure.
And so the Christians came over. So if you look at all the Palestinian heroes, you look at someone like Ahed Tamimi. The Tamimis are the terms of the clan. They're from Arabia. But her family also has Bosnak, which is why she has the curly blonde hair. Al-Bosnak's one of a very common surname amongst Palestinians. And so Palestinians are genetically diverse, but there are undoubtedly Palestinian Arabs that have lived on this land for millennia, or descend from Arabs that have lived on this land. And the other thing is, just because you're called Al-Bosnak, it doesn't mean that your mother's line or your mother's father's line wasn't in this land for a long time. And so to bring it back, that's not what indigenous means, though. Indigenous doesn't mean that you've lived on the land a long time. It means your people had their ethnogenesis, their culture is tied uniquely to this one piece of earth. So the English, just to land the point, and then you can go. So English, as an ethnic group, very clearly had their ethnogenesis in England. Now, many of them have gone off to America, etc., but they trace their roots back here. They trace their culture back here. The Palestinians, that hadn't happened. There wasn't such a thing as a Palestinian or a people who were identifying as Palestinian, who had a shared culture, a shared etc. in this land. But in reaction to Zionism, and this is my point, that has now emerged. And you will struggle to find a people as proud of their identity, except maybe the Jews, than the Palestinians. We are both people who really, really take incredible pride in our people. And they've had their ethnogenesis here in reaction to Zionism. And so if they're still around in 100 years, I think it's a completely legitimate argument to say that the Palestinians, as that people, would be indigenous.
But that's an arbitrary number, though. I'm confused.
I just pulled
even though they have been around, they've been around for thousands of years.
No,
100 more years is going to legitimize them and
they haven't been.
Claim to the
Palestinians,
to the land.
The Palestinians as a people that call themselves Palestinian. That there was a small traces of it in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s that really started to get mainstream, particularly pushed by people like
but the idea of modern day Israel just came around in the 1920s.
Are you talking about, if you read the
modern
Bible,
day Israel itself? Modern day Israel as what it is.
What I mean, even you only need to read the Quran. You only read Israel.
No. But are you trying to claim that the people of Israel today are the same people that are brought up in the Bible and in the Quran? That's not true.
Yes,
that is not true.
Okay, which people are?
That is not true.
So the time of Muhammad,
because you people,
at the time of Muhammad, there was
Yusuf, you've spoken of Yusuf. The people today that claim themselves to be Jews, I'm pretty sure of this. You could correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm confident about this. Barely have any ties to the Jews that are brought up in the Quran and in the Bible. You guys are not the same people. No, it's not wrong. Even though you claim, and by the way, what you're holding against the Palestinians is the fact that they didn't keep this homogenous nature where they only just stayed amongst their people. But they married outside of the Palestinian.
That's not what indigenous means.
No, that's what you said. No, you said
the English marry anyone, but the English still had the ethnogenesis here and have a language and a culture and a history.
Yusuf, let me finish.
Just don't misrepresent me then.
Even though.
Bro, can I just say one thing? Don't misrepresent me. Argue your points.
If I were to track your logic, Yusuf, the thing that is corrupt about your logic is that a Jewish person or somebody who's genetically a Jew that has never been to Palestine, Israel, whatever you want to call it, right? That has never seen the Middle East, has more of a right to be there than a Palestinian, for instance, who's been pushed out during the Nakba, a Palestinian who's been kicked out of their homes. You're telling me those people have more of a right to the land than those Palestinians, just because you believe that the American from Brooklyn that so happens to be a Jew genetically has more ties to the land than the Palestinian. Most people would disagree with that logic. Most people would absolutely be against that logic.
Did any of those words leave my mouth?
It is a logical conclusion that I think any intelligent person would come to.
Did I say anything about anybody having more of a right to be in this land?
Why are they given the right to return, but Palestinians that were pushed out during the Nakba have not? Why isn't the Israeli government allowing those people back into Palestine then?
By that definition, what would you consider a Palestinian? Would you go by the United Nations definition, UNRWA's?
Why you always go? What is a Palestinian?
So that's what I'm asking.
No, what is a Palestinian? I'm confused. How do you not know what a Palestinian is?
So I'm asking you. I know which definition I would.
Okay, use. You know what? Let's do this. If you know the definition, then why would you ask me? Let's go.
No, I said I know which. No.
United Nations.
I'll tell you what you don't need to. I can tell you what the United Nations.
How about no? Hold on. Let me finish. Yusuf, how about we go by the 700,000 Palestinians that were pushed out during the Nakba? How about Israel allow all of those Palestinians
it's
back
not
into Palestine?
700,000, but it's fine. But that's the United Nations definition. That's why I was asking. So the United Nations definition.
Okay, sure. So,
is anybody who has patrilineal descent, paternal descent, going back to British Mandatory Palestine and lived here between the years 1946 and 1948. So if your great-great-grandfather came from, my Shia brother here said he was from Iraq. If your great-great-grandfather came from Iraq and lived in British Mandatory Palestine for 2 years, you moved there in 1946, and every single one of your other families was Romani Gypsy, the United Nations would consider you a Palestinian refugee. Even though he was only there for 2 years, and you've never stepped foot in the country, you've never stepped foot in the land.
2 more years than the Brooklyn Jew that we just spoke about in the hypothetical.
Arguably, yes, you could argue that.
So they would have more of a right.
I wouldn't say more of a, the Brooklyn.
By Israel's definition would be given the right to return to Israel and given Israeli citizenship.
The overwhelming majority of the Brooklyn Jews' ancestors are likely to have descended from there. You can't say definitively, but I would argue that yes, there's an argument if they lived there for 2 years, then they may.
So then you just went back on your argument. Even if they lived there for 2 years, even though their family have never been in Palestine.
What's my argument? I went back.
The point you were. I'll make your argument right now. Your argument was, let's say somebody that hasn't been in Palestine prior to 1946 was there for those 2 years or for a month.
Not them, their great-great-grandfather. Their great-great-grandfather, not them.
Okay, sure. Their great-grandfather. And now all of a sudden, they're allowed in. They're seen as a Palestinian refugee. You are making the argument that would be ridiculous. How could that be? How could that person be seen as Palestinian?
I've not made that argument.
Is that not your argument?
I'm saying the definition of a Palestinian according to the United Nations is weak. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying about who should be allowed in and who shouldn't be allowed in. I'm just saying I think it's a weak definition.
What would be your the definition of a Jew?
I think the definition of a Jew. So I think the definition of a Palestinian is terrible. But I would say that anybody who fled in 48 and has descends from people who fled in 48, I'd say it's impossible to determine. Like you can't say, well, how long were you living here, etc. So I would go along with the United Nations as being probably the best measure that we have for who is and who isn't Palestinian. I just think it's a weak definition because it ties it to this 2-year clause.
But you can't offer a better one.
Because there isn't, because there is no better definition. That's the definition of a Palestinian.
No, what I asked you is you can't offer a better one, but you keep bringing up the point that it's a weak point.
It's a weak definition. I'd say the definition of who is a Jew is much stronger. The definition of who is a Jew is to do with how you were born, or whether you take the Jewish Shahada and join the people. You're nationalized, and
then those people would be given more of a right to go to Israel than the Palestinians.
In the same,
I'm supposed to believe that it's not a supremacist state. Yet I'm supposed to believe that Arabs are treated equally as.
In the same way.
Do you see how you just contradicted yourself?
In the same way that if a woman from Cairo married a man from Haifa, listen, I'm answering.
No, you're not answering it. Acknowledge the fact that you just said that a Jew would be given more of a right off rip than a Palestinian because A, you disagree or you find it to be a weak definition of what a Palestinian is according to the UN, and B, that if a Jew who has never been to Israel or Palestine does a 23andMe and finds that he's a certain percent Jew, then that person off rip would be given the right to return to a land that he's never been in.
No, that's not based
over
on
a Palestinian. Over a Palestinian.
It's nothing to do with genetics.
Yeah, I'm supposed to believe that Israel. You just said genetics.
No, I didn't.
You just said a Jew.
So a Jew is okay. It's nothing to do with that percentage of DNA. So to be considered a Jew, you have to have a mother that you can prove is Jewish, or you've been converted by an Orthodox court into the faith. They're the only two ways. It's got
so
nothing to do with percentages of DNA.
What you're telling me gets even worse. You're telling me that if I were today,
I'm sorry it hurts you. I'm sorry it hurts your feelings.
Wait, no. No. It's not my feelings. It's the fact that you just claimed that you are not a supremacist state and that Arabs are treated as equal.
If someone has a Muslim father, if someone has a Muslim father, are they Muslim?
Yes. But they're not.
Oh, look at this supremacist religion.
They're giving citizenship to Saudi. Wait, hold on. Yusuf, you're being an idiot. Are they giving citizenship to Saudi Arabia? Are they then?
There are many. To be a citizen of Saudi, you need to be a Muslim. Yes.
No, hold on. That doesn't answer my question.
To be a resident,
if you were to today become a Muslim, would you be allowed in Saudi Arabia as a Muslim? Would you be given the citizenship?
If you were allowed, potentially. If you were to become a Muslim, if you were to become
easy.
What?
What are you talking about, bro? You just said if you were to prove that you have a Jewish mother, or become a Jew.
Oh, sorry, I understand your question. I agree with you. You couldn't
over somebody whose family has been expelled during the Nakba. You believe that if I were today say I'm a Jew, I have more of a right to be in Israel than the people who have been kicked out of that land themselves.
Yes, because
how's that fair?
I'm going to explain. I believe a people has the right to determine who can and cannot join. So in Islam, you can marry a Jewish woman, but a Muslim woman can't marry a Jewish man. You determine the laws of who is and who isn't eligible for marriage and the status of their children, etc. within Islam. And that doesn't make it supremacist. No, I'm answering your question.
You're not answering it.
I'm trying to. You have to slow down.
It's a very bad attempt.
That's fine. I'm doing my best, bro.
I hope you narrow it down.
I'm doing my best.
No, because we're talking about an ethno state. We're talking about a state that accepts.
I love that there's like literally dozens of allegiance. It's their religious allegiance. And look how triggered he is that the Jews have one. Bro, I am never going to be on Dhimmi again. I'm not paying you the jizya till I'm Sagirun. I'm not paying you the jizya till I'm Sagirun.
I never took anybody of you. Listen, in this current day and time, it's more likely that I'll pay interest to your people than you paying jizya.
Well, yeah, I hope you're not paying interest because it's haram. I hope you're not paying interest because it's haram, and it's Jahannam. It's Jahannam.
I said it's more than likely. I said it's more than likely. So, but it's just ironic that you bring up the jizya, acting as though that wasn't the best alternative of the
best
time.
alternative.
Because the Christians would behead you. Is that not the case? Is that not the case?
What, the Christians? Why do you keep on going with the Christians when I quote Quran?
I'm confused. At a time,
stand by your team.
Where people were, wait, hold on. No, wait, one second, Yusuf. At a time where people were being converted by the sword and told you either vacate or take upon our religion or die, Muslims came around and said, you could live amongst us. You do not have to pay our tax, but you would pay something that is a lower rate, and you would not have to say
where does it say lower rate? Where does it say lower rate? You're telling me that
wasn't just.
You're just making up your own religion, boy.
You do know.
Are you the prophet? You're just making up your own religion.
Then you must not know what a jizya is.
I know jizya. Okay, the only place that mentions jizya in Al-Quran, is in Al-Tawbah, ayah 29. What reason does it give for paying the jizya? You're trying to school me on Islam? Let's go. School me. What reason does it give?
Brother, I wish I was a hafiz. You got to tell me the surah itself.
Al-Tawbah, I said. Al-Tawbah, ayah 29. 929. Al-Tawbah, 29.
Go ahead and read it for me. You seem to have it memorized.
Sagirun. You said you spoke Arabic. What does Wahum Sagirun mean?
What does it mean? I don't know. The way you say it.
Yes, my pronunciation. They're humiliated. They're subjugated. They're belittled. What does it mean? You're a Sunni brother. You're a Sunni brother.
So you brought up 1 second. You brought up one ayah.
It's the only ayah that mentions jizya.
And 1 second. And you brought up 2 words, and then you said, "What does this mean?" And I'm assuming that you're an educated man, so let me educate you. The way that jizya works.
No, stop. We're not doing this. We're not doing this. You're not dealing with.
We're not doing anything. I'm explaining to you how jizya works.
Read the ayah. Read the ayah. I don't care about what you say. I want to read the ayah. Read the ayah, then read Ibn Kathir.
Yusuf, it's what the deen says. It's what the religion says.
Why do they run from Al-Quran?
You pay a lower rate. You pay a lower rate. Wait, hold on. Let me explain.
Why are you running from the Quran?
Explaining this. Does this scare you? I'm not.
No, I don't want the explanation. I want Quran.
Yusuf, I'm not running away from the Quran. Let me explain it to you.
I want Quran.
Brother,
I don't want you. I want Quran.
One word. You brought up
so
one
read
word.
the ayah.
Listen, it doesn't matter what you want.
Fight those who disbelieve in Allah. Subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Okay, if you want to speak about what the Quran says, I could ask you about the Talmud, and I could ask you what it says about non-Jews. I could ask you about what it says about how to treat non-Jews.
Yeah, we could
lie to non-Jews,
and we can go to the Talmud.
Right?
But instead, look how they run from the Quran. I ask him to read the ayah, and he goes to the Talmud.
No, I'm not.
What kind of a Muslim are you?
You're taking.
What kind of a munafiq runs from the Quran?
If my Islam was measured by a Zionist, then God forgive me for even giving a damn about what you have to say. I promise you, my Islam is not measured by the likes of you. But let me tell you what jizya is. A jizya is a tax that was paid by non-Muslims, right? It was a tax that was lower than
not by non-Muslims.
Yes, by non-Muslims.
By Ahl al-Kitab, not non-Muslims. Not by the Mushrikun, not by the Mushrikun.
Ahl al-Kitab, non-Muslims.
Just Ahl al-Kitab. Just al-Kitab, not non-Muslims.
Let me finish.
Well, don't lie.
Feel free to do this whole theatrical act on your YouTube channel. But right now we're having a conversation. Remember what you said. The tax was lower than what Muslims had to pay.
No, it wasn't.
That's
source.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was.
Show me one hadith. Show me one hadith that says it's cheaper than zakat. Show me one hadith. Let me
finish what I'm telling you. You were protected by Muslims. You were protected by Muslims.
I'm going to start calling you the prophet.
You are allowed to live in Muslim lands. You are allowed to live in Muslim lands. You are allowed to conduct business. You did not have to defend those lands. Muslims defended you and fought for you.
Jews fought in the Muslim army. Al-Yahudi led the Muslims in the Al-Andalus. You don't know what you're talking about. You've got dour talking points and they're outdated.
What the Muslims paid.
Source. I'll show you a hadith that contradicts you. I'll show you a hadith that contradicts you.
You could look up any historical document.
I'll go show you. I've got Kaiser document. I've got Genocide documents on my bookshelf.
And picking a hadith that's not sahih, or picking one ayah from a one surah using one word.
Bring me one source other than trust me, bro. Bring me one source other than trust me, bro. One source. I've got the Quran. I'll go to hadith. One source. One source.
You're unable to keep up with it.
One source.
You're unable to keep up with it.
I don't want to trust me, bro.
And at the time, hold on, let me finish. And at the time,
you're scared of your own religion.
Christians.
Look at him looking at. He's now googling, desperately googling an answer.
What am I googling?
Oh, he's quickly slid away.
Sure.
Bro, answer the question. I
promise you. I don't have to Google anything to beat you.
One source that backs up what you're saying.
I have still not been given a single source on your starvation sources that you said that you had. I have not been given a source.
I don't have a source. Okay, fine. He doesn't have a source.
No, I have not given any sources. No, you have not given me a single source. I literally went
Al-Quran.
Let's hold each other.
I gave you the ayah. I gave you the surah.
You gave me one ayah and one word that you have crudely translated. That does not work.
How would you say Sagirun? How would you translate Sagirun? How would you translate Sagirun?
Pull up the ayah right now.
Thank you. Finally. Bro, put your feet down. You're not even debating, Mr. Shear. Get your feet off screen.
Yo, put me out the video, by the way. I don't know why I'm here.
Why are you scared?
Guys, I don't want to be too rude to you, but listen, I don't want to be rude.
Well, you want us to wrap it up? Is that it?
Yeah. How long are you guys going to take?
Okay, I think we're done. I think he's cooked.
We're done.